Welcome back to Connor Reads, all you fantasy fanatics, magical maniacs, and lovers of labyrinthine lore. It's 2023, and this is our first video of 2023, and it's going to be part 2 of A Crown of Swords in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. 2023, really exciting. Let's get into it. Before you go any further, if you haven't read this book, there's going to be spoilers for the outset and throughout, so pause the video, go read the book, come back. For everyone else, this section is entirely from Egwene's perspective, and the way I would describe it is very political. It's a lot of posturing, maneuvering, and ensuring that she is going to be in the right place by the time she gets to Tar Valon to ensure she brings the White Tower together, deposes of a leader, and puts herself as the rightful Aemilian seat. So, some really big things that happen. In this section, we see Egwene discover that Moghedien has escaped. Now, we already knew this, of course, but it is interesting to see Egwene's reaction. And I do have some predictions based on this. Now, what it seems to be pointing towards is that there's a few things now that could really blow up in Egwene's face for her trying to become the Aemilian seat. Now, Aes Sedai, more than any other characters, are extremely political. Like, the game of houses is played strong across every part of this world, but the Aes Sedai do it really, really well. So something that could stop Egwene from becoming the Aemilian seat is some kind of political suicide. And now she has not only a couple of novices who know that she pretended to be an Aes Sedai, which is, you know, a big deal, but she also is in danger of people finding out that she was a part of keeping one of the Forsaken, Moghedien, alive and around other people as well. Now, we already know that Missana is somewhere in the White Tower, and if we know her and the other Forsaken and their levels of ambition and competence, she is probably, you know, as close to a leader as you could possibly get, if not posing as a leader or something crazy like that. So Missana will know Moghedien escaped and will know the story eventually, you have to assume. So if Egwene gets all the way to Tar Valon, and maybe there's an audience, and then Missana, in her disguise, lets that information loose, Egwene could lose all credibility at the critical moment. So my prediction is that something like that will happen. Like, it seems set up so that Egwene will take a political fall pretty aggressively, unfortunately. We also had a lovely scene between Egwene and the Wise Ones, and every single interaction in these books is so full of friction that it takes all your brain to read every single scene. Like, if you're not completely concentrating, then you could miss so much, because every single character, even on the same side on paper, some of them have hidden motives, all of them are playing the game of houses, so you know, it's difficult. So to have a couple of scenes where there is no friction, the Wise Ones love Egwene, Egwene seems to love the Wise Ones, they have mutual respect, like mother-daughter kind of thing, was lovely to read. And then straight after that really beautiful scene with a lack of friction, we have a very confusing number of things that happen across a couple of pages. So what am I talking about? Let me explain. Egwene visits Tel'aran'rhiod, and then what she does is allows herself to doze, but whilst monitoring her own dreams, because she is someone who can dream and, you know, have predictions of the future. Now, in this version of the books, it is pages 217 to 218, and there's no more than like half a line, maybe a line of each thing that she dreams. And some of them she says she discards. She's not, you know, she's not basing anything on those. She doesn't think they're foretelling. And then some of them, she's like storing them to try and figure out what they mean later. So I'm gonna go through and try and make some predictions on them, but there's not much information for any of them. So this should be fun. So the first thing is one that she actually says, you know, I'm not going to pay any attention to this, but it's oddly specific, especially in comparison to the other snippets that she doesn't pay attention to. And it is Nicola denouncing her to the hall, and Tom Merrilin coming to the trial to give some kind of evidence. The reason this really interested me is because Tom Merrilin, the only piece of information I can imagine him having that other people don't have that could be seen as some like awesome evidence, is he still has the letter from Moiraine as to who was responsible for gentling and maybe murdering, if I'm not mistaken, illegally his relative who could channel back in the day. Now, I could see that information being very contentious and really changing the direction of a trial if it had anything to do with it. So That would be my guess there. But then again, she said that she wasn't going to pay any attention to that dream, so I might be completely wrong as always, but that is my idea. The next very vivid dream that she has is Egwene trying to scale some kind of wall made of, and I'm going to butcher this, Sendilla, the material that cannot be broken by anything except for they all seem to be breaking. The seals for the Dark One's prison. Now she makes her own guess as to what this could be, and she guesses that's her trying to tear down the White Tower or the Aes Sedai. Now, she's probably right. However, what I was thinking was, we had a beautiful section about the Pit of Doom. I think it was last book maybe, like a description, and it sounded awesome. But I don't know exactly what the areas where the Forsaken were sealed look like. So maybe that's what they look like on the inside? I don't know, that was my guess. The next little snippet we get is Matt on a hill watching the Illuminators do a performance of fireworks, and he reaches up, catches hold of one of the fireworks, and then Egwene thinks, wow, lots of people are going to die because of this. And I actually want to say, in a previous video, I guessed that Matt would be the one, or that someone maybe would be the one to figure out that gunpowder, the Illuminators obviously have, can be used to make guns or cannons or explosives, and that will change the game. So I'm going to double down on this. Matt, with his deep knowledge and memories and analytical and war-based brain that he now has, is going to figure out that the explosives that is used by the Illuminators can be used for war. The next one we see is Egwene. She's on the block, she's tied up, and she's about to have her head chopped off. I have two predictions for this, two guesses. One, this is after the White Tower figures out, or the Aes Sedai as a whole figure out that she was a part of hiding Moghedien, and they decide to execute her as someone from the Black Aja, and that would be organized by a Masana, would be my guess. My much less likely guess, in my opinion, is that the Asherman get a hold of her, and maybe it's Mazrim Taim or Logain who's going to be responsible for this execution, because they have some deep-seated hatred of any women who can channel or any Aes Sedai, and she really is the pinnacle of that, her or Eleda right now, so potentially that. And she also mentions a hero is rushing to save her. That could really be anyone. It could be Gawain, it could be Rand, and it would depend on who put her on the block. And the final one is Logain stepping over what looks like a dead Rand, but it's not really a dead Rand, it's just a puppet. That's not much information to go on. Maybe Lews Therin / Rand, cheat death, which is a regular fantasy trope, so I wouldn't put it past Robert Jordan throwing it in there. I feel like such a long story, at some point somebody's going to cheat death, and considering that we have a pattern that's never ending and people being reborn, that seems really, really likely. That's pretty much what we've read, and we see a lot of Egwene maneuvering people, having them swear fealty to her, and she's really, really impressive with that. And it wasn't long ago, a couple of videos, maybe a book and a half or a half a book, that I didn't like Egwene, but now she's winning me over. She seems very capable, intelligent, honest, ethical, and I think that time spent with the wise ones was time well spent. We also discover that her and her army must pass through Andor, so there's a possibility of the White Cloaks and Morgheids coming into this story as well. And then we also discover that Lan has been found. Myrell is looking after him, and essentially it wasn't a huge surprise. We knew that Lan was going to turn up eventually, and he is transported to Abu Dar to go and save Nynaeve, but also to eventually become her warder. That was all very predictable. I think what will probably happen is Nynaeve will be there'll be an opportune moment where she's about to lose, she's about to be killed or captured, or something bad's going to happen, and then Lan steps in, and I think I'm down for that. I'd really enjoy reading that, have a classic hero damsel in distress moment. That would be fantastic. But knowing Robert Jordan, it'll probably be the other way around. Maybe Lan gets captured and Nynaeve saves him. Either way, I'm down for it. Now, Robert Jordan doesn't mention anything if it's not going to be used later. Tchaikovsky's smoking gun. And one thing, when Egwene is taking Lan to Abu Dar and they're skimming, she creates this dock that they skim on. And she mentions in passing that Moghedien, when she was explaining how to skim, was really frightened by the idea of someone stepping backwards off of whatever they're skimming on. and there is no need for that to be in the story if it doesn't come up later. Now, considering, like I said previously, we have this pattern that goes like forwards and backwards in time, and it's never ending, and there seems to be different universes, like where are the foxes and the snakes through those different terangrials? Where did we go through those big stones in the first couple of books when we needed to travel quickly? How do the waves work? Like all of these different things. How are people reborn? All these different things lead to the idea that you can move around in time. So I would guess, you know, stepping backwards off of a dock while skimming would do something like that, and we're definitely going to see it later. And my final thing for this video was, I was getting, you know, a little bit crazy reading about people who like each other in these books. Like, if one character seems to like somebody else, what they end up doing is just constantly arguing, non-stop. And I just thought, you know, no relationship that I've ever had that's been great has been like that. Maybe in high school or something like that, where you tease somebody to let them know you like them, but just not as an adult. So I started to think, you know, well, he must be projecting this from somewhere. So I looked it up, and probably every single one of you know this already, but I did not. His wife was his editor, and I'm talking about Robert Jordan now. His wife was his editor. So I can see how that bleeds into his work. Now, as an editor, you obviously have to challenge the author, you have to make changes, put your foot down, try and convince them things are different than what they are. And considering that's his wife, and I know she retired and then only worked on his books for a while, plus there's a ton of pressure because there's this huge community who wants to see them finished, and they're awesome, and sometimes you get writer's block, and you know, I know a lot of authors get a little bit down sometimes and struggle, same as, you know, a lot of people in general. So like that makes so much sense, like why so many characters who like each other in these books or deeply love each other end up at odds and ends with each other, because that must be exactly the type of relationship that he had with his wife, at least for some of the time. So, you know, interesting thought. And that's it for today's video. I'm back from New York, so I should be able to read through this pretty quickly, which I'm excited to do, and make videos based on it as well. And it's 2023, so in the comments, let me hear what your resolution is. Mine is that I am going to try to do 2 videos per week for the entirety of this year, and then see if we can get to like 1,000 subscribers, or you know, maybe even more than that by the end of the year. But I'd love to hear what your resolutions are. How quickly do you read books? Because I feel like I'm getting slower and slower as I'm trying to make videos on them as well. How many books did you read last year? How many did you reread? Which books do you end up rereading every year? I'd love to hear it all. Outside of that, please share this video, like and subscribe, and let's have an amazing year.